Hello there! Today I will be reacting to a very interesting video that I found in my homepage, was just uploaded a couple of days ago, so nobody recommended this to me. YouTube did, so come on. Let's hope it's a good video. A Cold War relic turned urban mystery. Explore Warsaw's Soviet-era Spyville, its shadowy tunnels, secretive past, and dramatic Caesar during Russia's war in Ukraine. So the premises are there. I don't know what to expect, so let's just check out the video together. Let's go.
So, if not, here's an interesting piece of trivia for you. At 100 Sobietskiego Street in the Sheltzer district
Wait, let me see. Is there subtitles? No, unfortunately.
stands a massive block of Tetris-shaped apartments. Aside from its poor condition and rather awkward design, at first glance, there's nothing especially unusual about the site. What makes it really intriguing is what lies inside. This building once housed Russian diplomats and members of the Soviet nomenclatura. When it comes to its actual purpose and function, many uncomfortable questions remain. For example, beneath the sprawling complex is a network of tunnels. Again, perhaps nothing out of the ordinary. Many buildings constructed during the communist era featured underground spaces for residents designed for use in case of emergencies from the pesky West. Although it's never been proven, it has long been rumored that if you were to follow the dark underpass, you would eventually emerge none other than the Embassy of Russia, formerly the Embassy of the USSR, located a full 2.5 kilometers north of those apartments. Much about the apartment block is shrouded in rumor, and no such connecting tunnel has ever, as yet, been discovered. Still, some facts about this murky site are far less contested, and although it now stands in a decrepit state, that is a far cry from the plush environment it once offered. What remains officially known as Sobietskiego 100 is locally referred to by a rather different and more insidious name, Szpigowo, or more simply, Spyville.
It's such a cool name. The Phoenix City.
So, how much do you know about the history of Warsaw? If the answer is not very much, Simon, well, here's some backgrounds. The capital city of Poland is sometimes referred to by its nickname, the Phoenix City, and for a very good reason. Warsaw was almost completely destroyed during World War.
Yeah, I've checked out a video that was very impactful, very strong to watch. That showed how Warsaw was at the end of World War II and how is it today. That was a really cool video. I'm gonna leave it here in the chapter so you can click on the top right corner to see it because it was very beautiful.
World War II by the Nazis, with the extent of its devastation being nearly unparalleled. Unlike other cities that suffered heavy collateral damage due to fighting, Warsaw's systematic destruction was carried out as a specific punishment for a mid-war uprising against the occupiers. In 1944, as the tide of the conflict began to turn against the Nazis, the Polish resistance sensed that the ends might be near. They decided it was time to free Warsaw from the grip of the Reich once and for all. The plan rested heavily on the hopeful expectation that the advancing Red Army would come quickly to their aid, since Soviet forces were already on Polish soil and not far from the city. So in August, the Warsaw Uprising began, but it was a failure. The Red Army did not come to the aid of the Polish people, instead sitting across the Vistula River and watching as the Germans clashed with the outmatched Poles. The insurgents fought valiantly for 63 days, but the rebellion was ultimately crushed, and what followed would change the city forever. Berlin set in the Brand Commando, combat engineers specialized in destruction and demolition, to exact a brutal retribution. Going door to door, they torched everything in sight and demolished building after building. Within only a few weeks, Warsaw was unrecognizable. The city had been flattened, and at least 150,000 Warsaw civilians were slaughtered. With 90% of the buildings destroyed, much of Warsaw's pre-war character, including its rich Jewish heritage, was lost forever. But that wasn't all. The responsibility of reconstructing the devastated city now fell to whichever administration would take control next. This turned out to be a Soviet-backed communist government which established total control over Poland by 1947. As a result, the Kremlin, through its local puppets, found itself with carte blanche to construct a socialist-style city in the heart of Europe from the ground up. In the decades that followed, what rose from the ashes was a city defined by a distinctly Soviet character, featuring wide boulevards or magistrali, abundant communist mosaics and monuments, numerous high-rise buildings, and a remarkable array of brutalist architecture. This freedom to reinvent Warsaw also allowed the Soviet Union to dot the city with structures tailored to its system of surveillance. It was this dynamic, in large part, that led to the rise of the Spyville complex. The complex at Sobieskiego 100 was completed in 1978, a massive 11-story building containing 100 separate suites looming over a gated plot of land measuring around 7,000 square meters. As mentioned before, from the outset, Sobieskiego 100 is nothing remarkable. It presents itself as a pair of terrifically ugly concrete blocks joined by an aerial bridge with a lonely pond serving as the sole hint of nature amid a sea of concrete. However, the interior once told an entirely different story. Even today, much about the complex remains shrouded in mystery as Soviet plans for the site vanished or when the system collapsed. Still, it is widely believed that the apartments offered extraordinary luxury for their time. According to the New York Times, the suites boasted balconies, glass cabinets, and the iconic orange sofas that were oh so popular in the 1970s. Far from being just a transient stop,
Never seen that sofa.
Sobieskiego 100 was home to a vibrant residential community and featured amenities such as a barbershop, saunas, a basketball court, a library, a movie theater, a food hall, a dentist's office, and a kindergarten. And while the official purpose of the complex was to house Russian trade officials and embassy employees,
Bruh, kindergarten inside a fucking building. What the hell? I mean, yes, there are some, but it's always better when it's like the whole building that is just a school, right?
this was only likely a half-truth. Many locals believed its true role was far more subversive. For this reason, the complex earned a not-so-flattering Polish nickname, widely seen as a hangout for the Kremlin's eyes and ears on the ground. Unsurprisingly, the authoritarian communist system was never popular in Poland. By 1956, the first massive protests against the regime erupted in the western city of Poznan. In the 80s, the dissident movement Solidarity formed in the shipyards of Gdansk, leading the push to bring the system to an end. By 1989, communism finally crumbled, and with its collapse, the strict surveillance system vanished almost overnight. Yet, despite the suspicion of locals regarding Spyville, it was by no means the only structure in Warsaw subject to scrutiny. Other remnants from the communist era far surpassed the complex, both in their physical size and in their level of notoriety, by a considerable margin. Some of these sites would be the first to attract attention in the period following 1989. The clearest, and still today the most significant example of a post-Soviet headache in Warsaw is, of course, the storied Palace of Culture and Science. Sitting prominently in the very heart of Warsaw, the building, requested by exactly nobody, was imposed on the cityscape as a gift from Stalin in the 1950s, even as much of Warsaw's population continued to live amid the city's ruins. With the construction of the Palace of Culture, it's possible that the Soviets aimed to distract attention from their state capture, political repression, and the emergence of other shadowy projects like Spyville.
I mean, of
Yet,
course I did.
Despite its undeniable grandeur, the Palace of Culture was not a residential building, nor was it anything that offered any tangible relief to the beleaguered population of the 1950s. Ironically, as historian Richard Foreman has noted, some of the few buildings that survived Nazi destruction were ruthlessly cleared away to make room for this massive new structure.
Bro, that's
Moreover,
crazy.
while the palace was presented as a tribute to Warsaw's resilience, Stalin's so-called gift awkwardly ignored the fact that the city's suffering might have been lessened had Soviet troops aided the uprising in 1944. Even more, the opulent building was constructed at the expense of an urban metro system, one that could have improved transportation in what was fast becoming Poland's most industrialized city. The Warsaw Metro would not appear until 1995, shortly after the communist period ended, and long after the city's population had soared to unprecedented heights. In short, for much of the period since the end of communism, the dominant debate revolved around whether the Palace of Culture should be torn down, and further discussions raged about how exactly that could even be accomplished given the sheer size of the 3,000-room megastructure. There was also the question of what to do with the former Communist Party headquarters, which ultimately became home to quite a groovy set of bars, as well as other places like the Ministry of Justice, into which multiple dissidents had disappeared during the communist era and never re-emerged. While all of this was being figured out, Spyville took a bit of a quiet backseat, being far less significant and less of a painful reminder of what the nation had endured in the years following World War II. But Spyville didn't escape attention entirely. Questions about its fate began to gain momentum in the early 2010s, and especially after 2014.
Oh, it's such a cool video. The end of
After the fall of
Spyville.
communism, the residents of Spyville packed their bags and abandoned the complex. By the mid-90s, it had begun to fall into disrepair. This did not mean, however, that the site saw no further use. Sobietskaya remained in the hands of the Russian government and soon became a revolving door for murky business dealings and obscure occupants. In 1998, the site was leased by a Russian company, unironically named Fart, which retained control for only a few months before
What the
plunging
hell?
into bankruptcy. During its short tenure, Fart attracted its own share of media scrutiny when
It's so funny how he said far trying not to laugh himself. I mean, he probably like recorded this like a couple of times, definitely 3 or 4 times. That smirk tells everything. Look,
bankruptcy. During its short tenure, Fart attracted its own share of media scrutiny when it was revealed that several former members of the Polish communist era
yeah, especially when you reveal it in public, it causes scrutiny.
State Security Service were all on its payroll.
Oh
After
my
Fart's collapse,
God.
the complex quickly fell into further dilapidation. Nevertheless, a strict Russian security presence endured, and multiple would-be visitors reported being harassed by unidentified guards and promptly removed from the premises. In the years that followed, an unexpected development took place at the site. A nightclub opened, accessible exclusively to Russian passport holders. The venue, known as Club 100, operated for several years and reportedly attracted a significant number of rather unsavory individuals. One patron even remarked that the bar had more Kalashnikovs than actual guests.
Bro.
Aside from the existence of this questionable club, Sobietskaya 100 remained in a state of limbo. Its ownership became an increasingly contentious issue between the Russian and Polish governments. Meanwhile, the site was officially unused, kept sealed off and under constant security and surveillance. In spite of this, urban explorers regularly found their way inside. The Polish YouTube channel Go Urbex, for example, published an entire series of nighttime visits to Spyville, seemingly bypassing whatever security measures remained in place with ease. The videos documented various features of the site, such as the former hair salon and the remnants of Club 100, which had finally closed for good in 2017. During their explorations, they discovered
Only
artifacts indicating
2017.
that people had continued living in Spyville beyond 1990. Among these was a faded wall calendar from 1994 and pieces of newspaper from the early 2000s. Over time, Go Urbex also began to uncover parts of the complex's tunnels and underground chambers. However, the YouTubers noted that much about the site was mythologized, likely a result of long-standing suspicion and hearsay that had surrounded it for years. Their videos played a significant role in dispelling some of the mystique that had clung to Spyville in the decades since 1989. While urban explorers were carefully dissecting the site, relations between Poland and Russia were rapidly deteriorating. Spyville's uncertain status inched towards a resolution in the 2010s. After 2014, as Russia began its intervention in Ukraine, the Polish government took steps to remove the complex from Russian hands entirely. Poland's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Warsaw City Council demanded rent from Russia, but the Russian government refused, instead reasserting its ownership of the property. In 2016, a Warsaw court ordered Russia to return the property to Poland, and the following year, it ruled that Russia should pay 7.8 million zloty, approximately $2 million in back rent. Russia refused. Any lingering pretense of cooperation vanished in February 2022. In response to Russia's full-scale ground invasion of Ukraine, Poland's attitude toward Russia shifted from merely uncooperative to utterly uncompromising. Poland ramped up its support for Ukraine, severed any remaining ties with Russia, and began strengthening its own military. Spyville quickly became a primary focus in this new era of Polish resolve. In a May 2022 interview with the New York Times, Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski summed up his thoughts on the complex quite succinctly. It was always called Spyville, and yes, many of these guys were spies. Just a few weeks earlier, Trzaskowski had unceremoniously expelled 45 Russian diplomats from Poland, labeling them, unsurprisingly, as spies. That same month, accompanied by a locksmith and armed with an electric saw, he entered Sobieskiego compound, bringing along the Ukrainian ambassador and a court bailiff. Trzaskowski then addressed the media, announcing that the site was now under control of the Polish state and would be repurposed to house Ukrainian refugees. The Russian ambassador promptly lodged protests, calling the expropriation unlawful and asserting that it violated Russia's ownership of the complex. But his complaints fell on deaf ears. The Polish was totally enthusiastic.
That was incredible. That was such an incredible move, you know, taking out the building that the Russians claims as their own and use it to let Ukrainians refugees stay there. I mean, that's such a bold move. That's such a badass move, I would say. I love that. I love that.
About the expropriation. Around the same time of Spyville's reclamation, some locals once again accessed the site and prominently decorated it with graffiti depicting the Ukrainian and Polish flags. Around the same time, the words "Glory to Ukraine" were carefully painted in front of the Russian embassy on a section of street that had recently been renamed Victims of Russian Aggression Avenue. That said, repurposing the site has come with its own set of challenges. The situation grew more complicated when the site plans mysteriously vanished, leaving the Warsaw City Council with the unenviable task of trying to assess its suitability for residential use, as well as uncovering any potential lingering hazards of the location. Concerns were also raised about the site's severe state of disrepair, which ultimately rendered it unsuitable for housing Ukrainian refugees and led to questions about whether the building would instead need to be demolished. But in late 2023, state officials completed their inventory of the building, and Deputy Mayor Tomasz Bratek announced that it would ultimately not require demolition. Then, in January 2025, Trzaskowski revealed its new purpose: housing for public servants and representatives responsible for the functioning of the state. This time, one can hope that it's the correct state. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a cool video. That was a really good video. Go and check out this channel, Places. I'm definitely subscribing. There will be a link in the description of this video to check out the original. That was really incredible. I didn't know about this, so yeah, that was incredible. For once, YouTube is recommended me good video. So yeah, thank you so much for you guys to check out my video. And yeah, I don't know, today I can't speak, I just woke up. So yeah, let me know more about this. Let me share more opinions, you know, on this matter. If you know something that wasn't said in the video, you want to share it, definitely go ahead and do so. And also let me know which video should I check out next. See you soon.